cell phone, your tablet, your laptop, most of the things that people think about as computers are actually remote controls that are operating another computer somewhere else. That is not your own. You are renting a moment in time and maybe a fraction of space. Rent costs. All that information is just flowing into the hands of a very, very and increasingly small number of very powerful technology companies. And we think this is extremely dangerous. We think that this is one of the more dangerous experiments humanity has ever conducted, and that very few people are aware that it's even taking place.
Technology is very invisible, and so it can take advantage of us without us even realizing it. It's going to be us, like at conferences like this, the same way we pointed out leaded gasoline was bad for people, even though it was invisible. Technology is also bad for us.
This is an exciting one, and it's not just because one of these speakers is my boss, but it's fun because it's just another dimension, right? Like I call this like a freedom tech panel. It's really like decentralized computing, and it's a topic that people think they know about, but then you talk to these two guys and you're like, I actually don't know anything. There's so much more here. And if you want to talk about big tech being centralized, I mean, I think we can all get behind that. So we have Matt Hill from Start9, Anjan from Daylight Computer, which is also where I work full time now. But I'm going to give them both maybe like 60 seconds or 90 seconds to give an overview of what they're working on at their startups, because some folks may not be familiar, and then we can dive deeper into it.
My name is Matt Hill. I'm one of the founders and CEO of a company called Start9. What we do at Start9 and primarily is we build server OS. This is different from a client OS such as Mac OS or Windows or iOS or Android, in that it is optimized to administer a personal server as opposed to a personal computer. Previously, if you wanted to administer a server as a anywhere from a non-technical to a fully technical person, you would be doing that on the Linux command line. Even if you're doing it from a Windows computer or a Mac, it's still the same basic skill set. We call them systems administrators. It's a very advanced knowledge base and skill set required. Usually it's CS students combined with graduate level systems administration training. They make a lot of money at companies that own and operate servers. And even if you're really good at it, it is a very time consuming, head banging, horrible process to keep servers up and running in a way that satisfies all the people who are using them. And so what this means is that very few people in the world are running servers. They are the tech giants. They are the wealthy people who can afford to pay, highly technical individuals, politicians, employ people so that they can run their own servers so that their data is not sitting on these third-party clouds. And who got left behind was everyone else. Individuals, families, and small businesses do not own and operate servers. Instead, we use the servers that are owned and operated by these technical, political, and economic elites. And at present, the entire world has kind of migrated to this model where we are all using remote controls and clients that are connected to servers that are under the control and power purview of those who do not necessarily have our best interest at heart. So what we identified as a way to solve this problem is to go back to the drawing board and basically enable or facilitate the proliferation of personal servers for individuals, families, and businesses so that they can opt out of this gigantic, degrading, surveilled, privacy invading, expensive model of computing that has come to dominate Earth. So what was needed to do that is an operating system, because operating systems are the way in which humans interface with computers, whether it's a client computer or a server. Operating system innovation has driven the history of personal computing. And so we set out to innovate in the realm of operating systems by developing an operating system that enabled a person, a normal computer literate person, to effectively and easily, eventually, own and operate their own personal server for themselves, for their family, for their small business, and opt out of the all the third-party services that they're currently using. So that's what we do. That's our mission.
Hello. Okay. Hi. I'm Anjan, and I started a company called Daylight. And the point of Daylight is to make accountable computers. The way I see it is the original sin of modern computing is there is no fucking accountability. And the best way to show that is Steve Jobs didn't allow his own kids until they were 16 to use iPhones or iPads, but he happily sold them to your cousins, to your kids, to your family. That's fucked up. Like, where's the fucking accountability in that? And there's no accountability for the fact they're spraying you in blue light, EMFs, keeping you indoors. There's no accountability for the fact they're constantly spying and tracking. They're promising you the world. They're promising you, oh, you can do your great essays on this. You'll be so productive. You'll do all that amazing stuff. And the actual reality of it is it's like the end of a pharmaceutical ad. You know, the first, they're like, let's take this drug. It'll be good. And it's like 40 seconds of like, you'll get diarrhea and your mom will die and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like tech doesn't have that, right? They just tell you the sex appeal of like, oh, this stuff's going to be great. And there is no 40 seconds of it. Here are all the ways it'll fuck you up. And so I think there has been no accountability for the side effects, for the externalities of tech. And so the question that motivates us is, if you were to rethink a computer with the best wisdoms of Maslow's hierarchy of the way we work, which is health, physical sovereignty, mental health, mental sovereignty, and then actual sovereignty, how could a computer look different? It's actual physicality, its software, and the way it fits into your life. And so that's kind of what we're up to.
So Matt, you talked beforehand, it's kind of important for people to understand is the relationship they have with technology, the internet, and how that kind of differentiates server and then client side. Do you want to like walk us through an overview of that? And I'm also going to pass around the physical products that both these companies sell. So for Daylight Computer, it's a tablet, and there's a Star9 server, but they also, as Matt mentioned, focus on the OS. But maybe you can overview that for people, because I think that'll be important.
Yeah, definitely. So it is helpful, and there's some gray area here, but it's very helpful to think about computers in two categories, and that is client and server. Another way to think about this is master and slave. And the way that I really like to communicate it is that clients are analogous to, and more are actually remote controls. So your cell phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop, most of the things that people think about as computers are actually remote controls that are operating another computer somewhere else, right? You click some buttons and you click enter, you enter some text, you send a text message. This is just, you think about it like a remote control for a TV. Ultimately, it is causing something to process or persist on a remote computer that is not your own, right? You are renting a moment in time and maybe a fraction of space on that computer. And rent costs. Rent is never free. And at present, you pay in multiple ways, but the two most prominent ones are the your data, right? Is because every button you click and everything that you do is communicated to and stored on these third-party servers. And so that data has value, marginal value per individual, but in aggregate, it's actually quite valuable. And the second way that you pay is with your money, actual monthly subscriptions or per usage fees. And so most people today are just using remote controls. Very few people actually run the real, quote unquote, computers, servers, where all the real, you can think of them almost as the engine that is enabling the cloud experience. This idea of syncing between devices and sending text messages and then opening up that message on your laptop and it's all there. Like, how did this happen? It's all magic. Well, it's not. It's because there's a master computer somewhere else that is aware of everything, of all the devices, of all the data, and is processing and storing everything. So Anjan right now is in the business of remote controls. Remote controls are necessary. Without remote controls, you can't control, right? So I'm not suggesting that everyone should have a server in their pocket. Remote controls are the way to go because you want to have lots of remote controls that all synchronize together through some server somewhere. And the client devices right now suck in a lot of ways, like he said, and he's more familiar with the ways in which they suck, particularly on the health front, in the light that they emit, in the way that they are designed to be addictive. But I'm more focused on the back end portion, the ability to allow anyone to run one of these master devices, so that wherever you are in the world, whomever you are text messaging, or whatever photo you're taking, is only going to this device that's in your home. So, quick little example: if I were to take out my phone right now and take a picture. Without any extra effort, that picture gets encrypted on my phone before it ever leaves, before any third-party surveillance or even an ISP can take a peek at it. It gets encrypted on the phone and then sent over a secure network to a device that's sitting in my living room in my house, where it is automatically put into a file system and added to a folder that I had granted permission so that my wife can see the photo on her phone on the other side of the world. And not only does this photo never touch a Google or Apple or any third-party server, nobody in the world, even the people who are transmitting the electrons over the network that represent the information being conveyed, have any idea that the picture exists. The picture, for all practical purposes, is just an electrical signal as far as anyone on the earth is concerned, except for me and my wife, or anyone with whom we choose to share that information. So that is how kind of computers work. Is you have a bunch of remote controls all over the world, and they have sensors on them. They're gathering information. They're taking user input, and all that information is just flowing into the hands of a very, very, and increasingly small number of very powerful technology companies who themselves are beholden to governments. And we think this is extremely dangerous. We think that this is one of the more dangerous experiments humanity has ever conducted, and that very few people are aware that it's even taking place, and that the consequences of it have not yet barely begun to show. So that's kind of an overview of the computing infrastructure as it exists today. You have extremely harmful, addictive, physically harmful client devices, which Anjan is out trying to solve. And then you have the back end portion of that, which is all the data processing and collection, which is not at all under the people who are using these computers control. So it's bad on both fronts. It's bad for your health and it's bad for your freedom.
To tell you kind of the way I think about what Matt just said is we're squishy, we're wet, we're organic. And that's our world. And there's this second world, which is metal, electrons, rigid. And it's almost like there is this world of us, of the organic, of the squishy, getting squashed by the world of the metal, of the inorganic, of the digital. And you can think about why computers are harmful is because they're just catering to the needs of the digital. They're not built backwards from our physiology. They're not built backwards from the way our psychology works. They're built to be the highest efficiency methods to get Instagram in front of you, to get you to spend an hour on this, to be able to monetize their $1 trillion market caps. And so it feels like the two sins of computing is first, the bridge between the squishy and the metal. That's what your iPhone is. That's what your iPad is. It's an interface. It's a bridge. You, the squishy being, attaching to this internet, to this digital behemoths, the metal. And right now, it's catering to the metal. It's not catering to us. And so it feels like the first thing we got to do is make computers that work backwards from how we work as humans. And what's being passed around is our first attempt at that, which is it's a blue light free computer. So you can do computing, but you don't need to get irradiated in blue light in all the ways that affects you. And it can be used in the direct sun. So it's also an outdoor computer. You've heard from Dr. Pollack and everybody else how important we are in terms of our relationship to the light environment. And then the third thing is kind of the second part, which Matt's talking about, which is, okay, if you make the bridge in which you connect to the digital to actually care about you, it's not always just spying on you. It's not just destroying your health. How do you kind of get your sovereignty back in terms of being connected to this thing? What I mean by that is, like, I use an app called Google Photos. Like, if you used Photos on Apple, that's the Apple version. I have like all these photos and videos of me as a kid. Like, my dad took it on like a VCR. That's not it's not available anywhere else. It's just uploaded to Google Photos, and it's free. And so it's awesome. Like, anywhere I go, I can access photos of me when I was 4 years old. I don't have these photos anywhere else, and I don't really know what file format they're stored in. And if I was to try to download them, I don't even know if it'd work or if my computer has enough space. If Google decided, this is us, this is our bridge to the digital world, and here are the Googles and Facebooks, these big digital behemoths. If they decided to just be like, hi, to access your Google Photos, please pay us $10,000. Just like, let's just say they decided to do that one day to please their shareholders. I'm like genuinely fucked. Like, these are the only photos and videos I have of myself as a kid. That's priceless. And it's like the person who's like, hi, kids, come into my white van. Here's some candy. Like, these guys have just given us candy, and we've forgotten they're trying to get us into their white vans. And one day, just to get shareholders, to get to 3 trillion, to get to 5 trillion, to 10 trillion, they will do some version, inevitably, of, hey, if you want to look at your baby photos, pay up, brother. And that, to me, is terrifying, because we're all just kind of slowly walking into this trap. And so what Matt's working on and so on is, how can we store our baby photos, this is my version of it, in a way where it's not stored in some unaccountable third party who doesn't give a fuck about us, but is stored with your family, with your community, in your tribe. And that's what these home servers are. Instead of in Google's data center somewhere, take that data center and split it across 100 people, have these little home servers, whether it's family, friends, whatever it may be. So even if your house burns down, you don't necessarily lose it. And now these guys can't take advantage of you. And the way you access it now is with healthier interfaces or bridges. And so I think the power here is, technology is it's very invisible. And so it can take advantage of us without us even realizing it. And I think it's going to be us, like at conferences like this, the same way, we pointed out leaded gasoline was bad for people, even though it was invisible. The way we point out pollution can be bad, even if it's invisible. Microplastics, technology is also bad for us, even if it's invisible. Whether it's the direct health impacts from blue light, from EMFs, from being stuck inside, to these more secondary impacts if they can basically hold you by the nuts. And so, I don't know. There's not too many new computer companies, but I think efforts like this are trying to create this new world.
Artificial blue light from technology is destroying our health. It disrupts melatonin production, sleep quality, and our circadian rhythms, which has been linked to pretty much all chronic disease. It also rewires our dopamine reward system, which makes it addictive by design. That is why I'm so thankful to have found the Daylight computer, the first company in the world making a computer that has a blue light free screen. They use paper reflective screen technology, so it's blue light free, flicker free, eye strain free, and is easily used outdoors, so you can use technology while getting the benefits of full spectrum sunlight. For more information, you can listen to our recent podcast with the founder of Daylight Computer, Anjan, on his incredibly inspiring story on why he wants to bring technology to the masses that is not detrimental to our health. You can go to buy.daylightcomputer.com/dradio to pre-order the Daylight tablet today and begin using your technology in a fashion that's way more in line with our biology and nature.
You're talking about one particular aspect of dependency, is that dependency can be taken advantage of, right? If you are dependent on someone for something, then you just have to do what they say. And extortion is one way that expresses itself. I like to think about the current computing paradigm, and by this I mean the client-server model, where everyone has clients, aka remote controls, and they're all connecting to giant mothership servers. This model of computing, colloquially known as cloud computing, has four very distinct major problems, of which that is one of them, even though that's itself is part of a broader category. So number one is the one that people think about a lot, which is invasion of privacy, which is that everything that you do on your remote controls are inherently public, not public to every individual on Earth, but public to some third party. And what they do with that is not necessarily up to you. Yes, they slap 100-page terms and conditions and privacy policy in front of you, which you don't read, sign, and then they change it next week anyway. But and then claim that you consented to all the ways that they're going to share your information. So invasion of privacy is one that is becoming an increasing concern, but is actually just one, and probably at the moment and in most countries, not the most important one, in my opinion. In some countries, it is a very important one because what you say can and is used against you often. In the US, we still have relatively reasonable levels of free speech. But the second one is censorship. When people are communicating through these giant cloud servers, they have the ability to amplify or suppress information based on whatever criteria they want. So when everyone is using X to discuss political activities, for instance, whoever controls the X servers controls the algorithm that runs on those servers. And while a lot of people think censorship is a matter of like, a literal gag or a deplatforming, it's not. Most censorship is insidiously invisible. It is algorithmic amplification of approved messages and algorithmic de-amplification or shadow banning of disapproved messages. And that all comes about. The existence of that problem arises from the fact that a single person or small group of people are controlling the access point of all that information. So they choose what gets seen and what doesn't get seen. Number three is that it is economically inefficient. It's an economically inefficient model because it inherently is middlemen. These are middlemen. These are, they're providing a service, and the service that they're providing is that we run the computing infrastructure, you use it. Well, can't I just use my own computing infrastructure? It's no different than having a broker. They're brokering, some information and some service. And that is always going to be more expensive from an high-level macroeconomic perspective than it would be if you were doing it yourself. Just like buying food at a restaurant is always more expensive than growing food yourself. It doesn't mean you should never pay for services. There's a place in the economy for that. It just means that it is more expensive to have other people do things for you than to do it for yourself. And then the last one, which almost nobody thinks about, is that when everyone is putting all of their data onto these third-party servers become extremely valuable targets for attackers, whether it's an individual hacker or another corporation or even a nation state in a cyber war. It is the holy grail of servers is the Google server, right? Like Anjan's talking about his photos on Google Photos. Well, also, Google has his contact list, his phone numbers, his email history. They basically know everything about him. And so let's say that there's a picture on there, that isn't like illegal or horrible, just something that he's not proud of, some picture, of when he was in college and, just was streaking or whatever. And now somebody gets that server and they weren't attacking him. He wasn't the target of this hack. The Google server was the target. He's just a civilian, innocent bystander who got caught up in the carpet bombing, so to speak. But the person who got the server now has the photograph, and they can send him an email that just says, "Hey, I got a photograph of you that I know. These people in your life you wouldn't want them to see it. So send me Bitcoin by tomorrow, or else I'm gonna leak it." That hasn't happened yet with a Google server, but there's a lot more hacks than people realize. They are going to increase in frequency, not decrease, because this is not a matter of AppSec, not application security. Encryption works. This has nothing to do with encryption. People think about hacking as like, one computer guru like battling another computer guru and whoever can type faster wins. That isn't how hacking takes place. Hacking is a matter of social engineering 99% of the time. There's some really standard application security practices that just work. So how do servers get hacked? Well, servers must be accessed. Otherwise, they're useless. So who has access? Find out who has access to the server, bribe them, blackmail them, threaten them, seduce them, whatever you got to do. Just get the keys. And then you're in. you've hacked the server. So hacking is social engineering, not computer encryption. And so every server, what I like to say is every server that is worth hacking, that is worth the effort and risk of life and liberty to hack, will be hacked eventually, if it's worth it. If the juice is worth the squeeze, it will eventually be hacked because humans are fallible and no server can be protected indefinitely. So as long as people are shoving all their data onto these third-party servers, it is inevitable that that server will be hacked and your private information will be leaked and possibly used against you. And most people don't think about that because it hasn't happened a lot yet. But we have to remember we're very early in the cloud computing experiment as a species. This is not some mature final phase of computing. We're in the infancy of the computing revolution as a world. And this one is not going to survive the night. It's a horrible, horrible model. It doesn't scale. It's dangerous. It's inefficient. It's expensive. It's undignified. And there's a better model, which is, the combination of what we are doing, him on the device side and me on the data and networking and server side. There's a better model, which is that you take the current cloud that is taking everyone's data in, and you shatter it into 3 billion pieces and put them in homes and small businesses, and you have a decentralized internet. What's cool, though, is that not everyone needs to buy into that for it to happen. You just need individuals on the margin to make the decision to opt out of these third-party clouds and infrastructure, take control of their own data. They don't need other people to do that to benefit from it. You as an individual or as a family or as a small business can do this today and garner all the benefits of it, including cost savings. And then if enough people do it, you have this emergent decentralized paradigm. It's not like it's not like a social network where you have a chicken and egg problem where if nobody's there, nobody wants to be there. You can do this on your own. And then if enough people do it, we're there.
I think that's a good part to ask. What is like success in your guys' opinion for your companies? Because as you mentioned, there hasn't really been many alternatives, and you're going against these massive, trillion-dollar corporations that are basically dictating our day-to-day lives. So how do you view success and like the time horizon that comes with it and the hurdles to achieve that success?
I think the first part is like just low-hanging fruit, and then the second part is like coming back to the original promise of computing, which is you are an ape and you have so much incredible potential in you. And the point of a computer is to help you get towards your unrealized potential. And it feels like so much of computing today is like turning you into the worst version of yourself. Like it's going towards your lizard brain, not your prefrontal cortex. And so I think that's like the big vision is like we all can be a little bit smarter, have a little bit better memory, like work on those projects we hope we did that, get lost, and just more poetry in the world, more cancer cures figured out, more time with family. Like, I think that is the possibility of computing. And the hard part there is the humility to be like less computing is probably the right computing. But the entire paradigm is based around more and more and more. And that's how I'm going to make more money. And that's how I'm going to get great numbers to show our investors. And so what's like the adequate amount of computing that allows you to do these magical things? And if you went back in the day and you told somebody, hey, talk on one side of this, and on the other side it'll translate to another language, they'd be like, that's magic. And that's like what we have now. It's like magic. But it's like, if you have the power of gods, if you have the power of magic, you also need the wisdom of gods, the wisdom to responsibly use that magic. And so it just feels like computing not being dominated by technical people and engineers, but instead anthropologists, coaches, philosophers, people come from a background of health, the people who actually care about people, who have studied people, computers being decided from that. I think that's the ultimate kind of vision.
So an inherent kind of property of technological innovation is that it always front runs cultural and political adaptation, right? Technology is an exponential equation. New technology affords new technology. For instance, the artificial intelligence tools that have emerged over the last 2 years have outgrown my own vision of what I thought would be possible in my lifetime 3 years ago. And this has been a sort of mind-blowing reassessment I've had to do with my own life and how I'm going to raise my kids and what it means for politics and economics. And I mean, it's earth-shattering, the magnitude of these innovations. And what's crazy is that those innovations are going to spur additional innovations even faster than we thought, because now, these AIs are operating at, superhuman speeds and with superhuman capabilities, and will invent and discover things that would have taken us decades before. So it's increasingly difficult to predict what's going to happen, but there's also no stopping the train. And so we have to catch up. And the faster we can keep pace, the better chance we have of surviving the transition, not just as individuals, but as a species. And I think a lot of that has to do with minimizing the disaster scenarios, right? Admitting that there's going to be turbulence, right? Not trying to hide from any kind of discomfort or turbulence, but accounting for the disaster scenarios. And in my mind, disaster scenarios, at least when it comes to nature, has to do with single points of failure versus multiple points of failure. So what we don't want, for instance, is all of the world's critical digital infrastructure being run by 3 companies, because in a full-blown cyber war, the internet goes down, the grid goes down, and people suffer, right? We are increasingly dependent on computers and digital systems for our very survival. And so I consider it a not only personal, but kind of a sociological imperative that we distribute computing resources so that, and distribute control over computing resources so that there isn't a single point of failure, which would be catastrophic to, entire societies. And I'm not talking about some imminent, acute threat tomorrow. I'm talking about a gradual growing threat over the next, hopefully we have this much time, next couple decades. And so we are moving as fast as we can to play our small role in helping to distribute computing infrastructure, to disintermediate information for humanity's information age, right? We are in an information age where information is more important than knowledge. And I don't just mean information, the noun, I mean information flow, right? That information must be open and free flowing. And so the bottleneck, or the barrier to that right now, is political and economic interests that have become entrenched primarily in Silicon Valley, that do not want to see this happen. It is the source and essence of their power. But we are in a race, not just to disempower them, but to empower individuals and families, because there is this war coming, right? I don't mean traditional warfare necessarily, even though that might be the case as well. But the idea that we were just going to be able to build all these bridges and nobody was ever going to bomb them is not taking human history into consideration. We have very vulnerable infrastructure right now. It is not robust, anti-fragile. It is not decentralized. It is centralized and vulnerable. And so when the bombs start falling, people are going to be marooned on islands with no ability to get information. And without information in an information age, it's like not having, machines in the industrial age. You're just going to struggle or die. So what does success mean?
Yeah.
Shit. No, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic person. I'm just realistic in the challenge that we're facing. I don't want to downplay the situation because that's how you end up unprepared. But I am optimistic. I think that things are going in the right direction, and there's a growing awareness of the problem and a growing awareness that there are solutions in the works. So success to me, is let's get as many servers into as many homes and businesses as possible, such that if a central server does go down, the maximum number of people are unaffected. And I'd love to see the proliferation of healthier devices as well. Devices that are not begging for your attention, that are not bombarding you with EMR and blue light, and like devices that are more designed for human biological needs, and as many servers as possible. And it's a race. If we can create healthy devices and distribute computing infrastructure, then the minimum number of people will be casualties and will survive the night.
This podcast is brought to you by our lead sponsor, EMR Tech. EMR Tech manufactures high-quality, high-powered red light therapy devices. In my opinion, red and infrared light are two of the biggest nutrient deficiencies in our modern society due to our indoor lifestyles. Red light therapy devices, like the ones from EMR Tech, can help combat that by providing high-powered red light while being indoors. I personally use mine every morning and every evening. Red and near infrared light is extremely beneficial for energy production in our body because it boosts mitochondrial function and penetrates deep into the cell. It is also extremely beneficial for skin health, eye health, as well as our circadian rhythms. And this is actually pretty much why I bought everyone in my family an EMR Tech red light therapy device for Christmas. EMR Tech panels are low flicker, low EMF, and use targeted wavelengths such as 830 and 630 nanometers, amongst others, to get extremely effective results. For more information, go to emrtech.com and use our code DRadio10 for 10% off your order. That's emrtek.com with our code DRadio, DRADIO 10 to save at checkout.
So it sounds like Star 9 and Daylight just need to be successful and really accelerate. But that's my next question. How do we, because you mentioned the issue is that there hasn't been a lot of companies that have succeeded and have, had a major impact on the tech we use on a day-to-day basis. I mean, and it's obviously very challenging. It's taken Anjan 6 years to get to market. But how do we increase that percentage of being successful and getting more resiliency, redundancy in this more sovereign tech sphere? Is it sharing? Is it open source software, hardware IP, collaboration? What do you guys think?
For me, it's just about like education and awareness, because I think what happens in the digital world, if that same thing happened in a physical circumstance, you'd lose your shit. It would just be so obvious to you. You'd be like, that's fucked up. But because there's something about the digital, it's not real, it's not physical. I don't know what it is. Like our intuitions don't trigger the same way. Like let me share one example that was helpful for me. The analogy here is this is how apps work. Imagine you went to a store and you bought a can of coconut milk. And you came home and you're like, oh, I'm going to use this to cook some Indian food, right? And you come home, you open up the can, and you try to pour it, and it wouldn't come out. You look at it, you're like, okay, there's coconut milk in there. Why isn't it coming out? And you read the can, and it says, can only be used in Thai food. You're like, what the fuck? Why are they telling me how I can use the can of coconut milk that I bought? But that's what apps are. After you've actually brought it into your house and the consent was, okay, I want this, they are still controlling you on how it can and can't be used. The analogy here is like YouTube is running on your computer. You should be able to decide how to engage with YouTube. Whether it's Indian food or Thai food or whatever it may be, the digital equivalent, you should be able to decide how to engage with YouTube. But you can't. You must consume YouTube in the way they want you to consume YouTube, which is designed to be maximally addictive. So one thing I did is I used a Chrome extension to hack it such that when I go to YouTube on my computer, all it'll show is the YouTube logo and a search bar. And all those videos they show on your home screen are gone. You could scroll down and get to them, but by default, the home screen is white except for that. And then on YouTube, usually when you're watching a video, on the right side on your desktop is all these recommended videos, right, that are finagling for your attention. With that little Chrome extension I have, that's gone. If I scroll down, I can get to it. That little change of where I got to choose how I want to engage with it made like YouTube like 85% less hijacking and addictive for me. Because I go to YouTube with a particular attention. Oh, I want to watch a Gerald Pollack lecture, and I go there and I'm watching like basketball highlights and how you make beef jerky for the next 45 minutes, right? Like if I want to watch that, I can go and search for it and do it. Like that's not the problem. It's the hijacking. And so in the physical world, you would lose your shit if the can of coconut milk could only be used in a certain way after it's in your house. But we don't lose our shit when we can't do the same with YouTube. We're just like, I guess this is what we got to be. And then we blame ourselves. Oh, I suck. I'm addicted. I don't have willpower. I don't have discipline. I'm the same person. And I'm like happier and way less addicted because of this one little change in the way I have agency in the way I interact with YouTube. And so for me, if enough people complain, these companies will be forced to be like, I guess you can use coconut milk also in Thai food and Indian. You're like, duh. Yeah, that's reasonable. And so I think we just find the digital confusing and intimidating, and it's invisible. And so how do we make it concrete? How do we educate so enough of us actually complain that these companies are forced to be accountable?
To be fair, something you said there is very important, which is that you said, when I go to YouTube, right? And so the analogy slightly breaks down in that sense, because YouTube is not something that you're taking home. It's not something that you bought or acquired and brought home with you.
Right? YouTube is running on your computer in
It's
your
not.
browser.
It's not. That's the point, is that YouTube is being delivered to you, right? YouTube is running on a Google server and you are renting access to it. It's like going to somebody else's house and then they set the rules. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's like, my house, my rules. You're just a guest here. You are just a guest of Google. You're a guest of YouTube. It's not yours. You know what I mean?
At the risk of being saucy, then my Chrome extensions wouldn't work, right? The actual interface is being rendered on your own computer. The videos are being fetched from somewhere else.
You can go to somebody else's house and get away with stuff that they don't want you to do using various techniques. And those techniques are good and valid, and I support them 100%. But that is the analogy of what you're doing in that scenario. It's you're using an outfit to pretend to be somebody else, or you're going in through a different door so that they don't see you, and therefore getting a better experience in their house. But that sort of has its limitations, right? Eventually, for instance, if they just turn the house off, right? He who has the power to destroy a thing has absolute control over it. Then your Chrome extension wouldn't work because there wouldn't be a YouTube. That's sort of the ultimate proof that it's not yours, is that they can just turn it off. So right, this is important. There's a lot of nuance here, but that's why I'm pushing back a little, is because the nuance is important, and it's not always clear what's happening under the hood. What we advocate for as a final model, a sustainable, scalable model of computing, is that you are actually running YouTube on your computer, except it's not YouTube, right? It's a piece of software that acts like YouTube, it looks like YouTube, it behaves like YouTube, but you're not going to a Google server to access it. You have literally downloaded the software and are running the program on a server that you control. And now, instead of going to YouTube to watch videos, you go to your server to watch videos. Now, how did your server get those videos? Well, it torrented them from other servers. It's physically stored on your server. You are never asking permission from anyone to watch the video. It is literally physically in your possession, physically being served from your device. The only person who can turn it off is you. There's an elephant in the room here, which are the ISPs. They don't physically control the server. They don't physically control the data that's on the server, but they do control the flow of information over fiber optic cable. And so eventually someone's going to have to take them on, but they're the gatekeepers. So the original question here was about how do we do it? Anjan's right. It's education. We as a team are not primarily educators. Obviously, I do some talks like this and try to educate, but that's not really what I do on a daily basis. Mostly I'm coding. So we lean on community educators. Like I was on your podcast, and we support, podcasters and anyone who blogs And we donate to some of these people, not for advertising plugs or anything like that, just because if they're educating about things that ultimately are going to lead people in our direction, then we support your work. But there's actually a more, not more, but an alternative way of getting people in to our world, to adopting more healthy computers and using them in more sovereign ways, which is that you recognize that the existing model and devices are broken, dangerous. It's just a matter of time. What the question is what gives first? Does the existing model lead to some sort of catastrophic failure first? Or does the existing model become painful enough that enough people exit to prevent catastrophic failure? And so that goes in tandem with education. The more education there is, the more people will jump ship before the ship goes down. Right? So it's about lifeboats. It's not about stopping the existing system. That's going to stop itself. It's going to collapse under its own weight. It's an unsustainable, poor model of computing. It's about making people aware of that. But then more importantly, even, or at least equally importantly, is having the lifeboats. Yelling the ship is going to sink doesn't do a whole lot if people can't get off the ship. So that's why education and production, right? Entrepreneurs and educators sort of go hand in hand here. Is we need the education, we need the awareness, but we also need to be writing code. We also need to be building devices, and that's where we primarily come in. As we are physically, literally creating the lifeboats, and not everyone reaches for them. And over time, as the hacks increase and the privacy invasion increases and the censorship increases and the monthly subscription costs go up, more and more people will see it, more and more people will jump ship. And I'm optimistic that enough people will jump ship in time to allow the ship to sink without too much collateral damage.
The way I look at it is, in terms of us changing computers, it's arming the rebels. It's trying to give us a chance at doing something against these empires. And to Matt's point, if you really want to solve a root cause, you also need to take down the empire, not just arm the rebels.
So yeah, but I don't say that part as much. Will people use personal servers to transmit undesirable information and organize in ways that existing political, elites don't want? Of course. But that's sort of an obvious consequence. And I don't like to say it too much because it draws a lot of attention. But we are already aware, obscurely, of people who acquire personal servers for the explicit purpose of evading surveillance because they are saying and doing things that are not necessarily illegal, but that may put them on the wrong lists and be distasteful. And I encourage it. I think private spaces for, moral and justified resistance are necessary for the health of any political body. If the, out political parties or the rebels cannot organize and communicate, then they don't stand a chance, which means power goes unchecked. The ultimate power against large government and is the people. And so we, like, sometimes, depending on which crowd I'm in, say that we are the Second Amendment of the digital world. We are a way for you to arm and protect yourself against runaway power at the government and big tech level.
Last question from me, and then we can open it up. What do you think the biggest risk or threat is to puncturing your quote-unquote lifeboats that you're building?
Investors are cowards. Honestly. They're just like, oh, you're going to compete with these trillion-dollar companies that no one has succeeded at? I guess we're not going to invest. I'm like, dude, what is the point of being called a venture capitalist? Is to do something that hasn't existed. So I just say there's like an overall cowardice. And technology is expensive and complicated, and engineers are expensive. So you need courageous investors to make this work.
I've had to come to terms with my own answer over the course of the last few years. It's been very difficult for me to recognize that my previous sort of unwavering love of human nature and humanity, sort of the glory of humanity as being the pinnacle of billions and billions of years of stellar evolution and biological evolution and this amazing consciousness that we possess might not actually survive the night. Like if you think about this at a cosmic scale, sure, you would imagine that there are civilizations throughout the cosmos that don't make it, that self-destruct. And that seems obvious to us. We're just like, yeah, like some would make it, some might not, some will make it off planet, some will die from plague, some will die from nuclear war, et cetera, et cetera. Jury's still out where we land on this one. And it was the blatant flexing of propaganda and coercion that took place from 2020 and beyond that is now remaining and expressing itself in different ways. It's not the existence of that tactic that surprised me, right? It wasn't the fact that governments use propaganda and, big corporations are perfectly willing to squash you for profits. I understood that part. The piece that took me by surprise was the willingness of the vast majority of people to get sucked into that and taken by that. And so for me, the biggest threat to the lifeboats is that people don't get on them, is that they settle for convenience and comfort and lies, even blatant ones, over relying on their own rational mind and eyes and to do the right thing and save themselves. I don't know if people want to be saved. I more and more have gotten the impression, and I believe this is due to widespread mental illness, and I'm not saying a particular illness, I'm saying this generally in the same sense that most people would say the population at large is physically unhealthy. Population at large is mentally unhealthy to varying degrees. And a result of that widespread sort of systemic illness is, I think, almost a desire to go down with the ship. I'm just not convinced that people want to live. I have a few times. It's a lovely show. We educate as best we can. We support educators as best we can. We build lifeboats as fast as we can. I don't know if people are going to get on them.
Are you self-employed or a small business owner and are tired of paying hundreds of dollars a month to centralized health insurance companies for minimal coverage because there is no alternative? Well, I have good news for you. There is. And this podcast is brought to you by CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is a more decentralized alternative to health insurance, and it uses community and crowdfunding to help its members pay for emergencies when they do happen. They incentivize and prioritize health and personal responsibility and share the thought that you should really only be using the centralized healthcare system when emergencies do happen. This is what I am on board with, and I have personally signed up for CrowdHealth since I left the corporate engineering world and the medical benefits that come with it. If you want to learn more, you can check out our episode with CEO and founder Andy Schoonover, or you can head over to joincrowdhealth.com and use code DRADIO, DRADIO, when you sign up to get a discounted rate of only $99 for the first 3 months. Centralized healthcare is one of the biggest issues in our society today, and I really love what CrowdHealth is doing to provide an alternative for people who care.
I think that's why Bitcoin is so important and why I gathered so many multidisciplinary folks here today, because you can see the money, how important is the money for research like Dr. Pollak's, for supporting Daily Computer, for supporting Start9, but also the value set, right? When people do have an awakening, COVID woke a lot of people up, but guess what? Still, most people didn't get the fuck out of bed. They're still asleep, they're still groggy, whereas when it gets to a tipping point and they do find something like Bitcoin, or they lose their health to a point where they need to go down these rabbit holes, it offers a value set that can really change. I mean, it changes the whole direction of your life. I think almost everyone here would probably agree with that. So I think applying that to the ethos here gives us a greater chance for filling these lifeboats and building them to be successful. But yeah, any questions from the crowd? AJ was first. It's fast.
What size of company is your server able to support? And can it scale? And is the idea for it to be able to scale larger as like say our company scales?
So we don't have a business product yet. We use it as a business. Businesses use it, but that doesn't mean we have advertised it as business ready. Businesses have different needs than families, namely that they need secure public access to things that are running on the server. For instance, your website, your blog, your e-commerce store, your Lightning node, whatever it happens to be. Businesses generally need to interact with the general public, and the general public is not going to go through setup things. You can't tell your customers, okay, well, go change these settings on your computer to make sure it can talk to the server, and right, because networking is a very difficult challenge. Like, how do you get a signal from here to Denver securely in a way that doesn't expose anything at all? Involves a little bit of advanced setup, right? Like, I do not advertise these devices as like grandma ready plug and play technology. It's not. It's early stage beta technology. We've been in market for 5 years, but it's not ready for that level of adoption yet, and it's not quite ready for businesses, but that has been our focus over the last 12 months, and I believe that we will have a business ready product by the end of this year. With that in mind, you asked about scale. So we think the sweet spot for a business running a personal server that runs StartOS, so that they can administer it themselves without having to hire, $250,000 a year sysadmins, is somewhere in the like 20 to 80 person range. If you're above 80 employees, or you're just a massive business with tons and tons of customers that need to access, digital resources, you can probably afford to like roll your own servers. We're not an enterprise product, right? Like, most giant companies run their own servers, or at least run their own software on AWS servers or Google Cloud servers. Like, they might not have the physical server on-prem, but they're at least controlling the servers using these advanced skill sets, remotely. So we don't really care about them. They have plenty of money. They have plenty of skills and in-house expertise to administer their own servers using any operating system they want, using the Linux command line, whatever. We're catering to the people who have been left behind, the people who are getting charged $10,000 a month in software subscriptions just to run QuickBooks and other pieces of software that they need to make their business work. That's who we're targeting, because the sales pitch isn't just be more private, be more censorship resistant, protect your company, employee, and vendor data by not putting it on servers that are under siege. It's not just that, it's actual cost. Very bullish on the business use case here, because I can go into a small business of 30 people and tell them with a straight face that it'll take a week of setup using, concierge service. We're going to come in and help you understand all of this. It's not that hard. You probably get it in 2 days, but I'll give you a week. And you're going to save $10,000 a month, bottom line, straight face. And the resulting experience will be basically identical. None of your customers will know that you're doing this. They'll just go to your website and read it like they always would. They'll go to your e-commerce store and purchase things like they always would. It's your little secret that this is running on a server in a bunker or at some storage facility down the street that has armed guards, or wherever you need to place the physical server. It's just cost savings, privacy, and security. So yeah, I'd say upward of 100 people is probably where we'd be like, you're fine. Yeah.
I have a comment and a question, which I think might be dumb, but the comment is, so I am an educator, I'm an engineer, but I transitioned to helping people hold Bitcoin in a self-sovereign way. And what ends up happening is, once you get on the Bitcoin rabbit hole, people are more concerned with privacy. And so my customers, a lot of them, they're asking me questions about Start9, or I help them spun up their own Start9 server. And just general privacy best practices. And what ends up happening is I realize my journey has been a gradual one. Most people that I deal with are boomers, and they, to your point, the way that they interact with computers is so different than the way that I interact with them. It's this digital hygiene protocol. Like, they have, their emails are full of spam. YouTube is just full of ads. Like, they don't have password managers. So what I realize is that I reach people with Bitcoin, but ends up being more of how to interact with that computer in a way that is not overwhelming to them. So that is I mean, yes, devices and OS is great, but there's an education portion of it because there's already a lot of tools out there. We don't necessarily need more tools, just how to use the ones we already have. And to your point, though, you're saying like, okay, run your decentralized server like at home. I mean, I was around when LimeWire was out. Like, right, I downloaded songs and videos through LimeWire, and that went away. So wouldn't it be stopped the same way again? Like, tell me how this is different from LimeWire, I guess. And I said it was going to be a dumb question, but it helped me understand.
It's not dumb. There's just a couple buried in there. So Bitcoin has served as a gateway drug, so to speak, to a whole life awareness of lifestyle sovereignty. This conference is an example of that. We're talking about, nutrition and easy water. It's like, and this is because of Bitcoin in a sense that we're all here today. Like, I think a lot of the people here, Tristan included, came at it probably through that angle. So Bitcoin is wonderful. It's a catalyst, it's a gateway drug, and not everyone is prepared to go down that very deep rabbit hole that extends to all aspects of their life. And computers in general, or specifically, can be quite challenging to reorient your mind around, how to use a computer in a different way, or to even understand how they work in a basic way. So we welcome everyone. Our door is wide open, and we're trying to be as helpful as possible. But I'm under no delusion that everyone will do this. We are most focused on the children. Right. This is not a solution that's going to be solved right now. This is a solution. This is something that we need to, 2 generations before a new computing model and paradigm can take hold in the world. So again, we welcome everyone, but I don't spin my wheels or waste my time on someone who's not, willing to learn new things and try new things and expend some effort. I wish them the best of luck, and then I move on. So that's part of the answer. Secondly is sort of how is this different from LimeWire, right? So you were running that on a computer. You were running that on your laptop or desktop at the time. It was in that moment functioning as a server, right? A computer is a computer is a computer. Any computer could in theory be a server, and any server could in theory be a client. It's more about what you're using them for that defines what they are. And sure, the hardware is different because it's optimized for server software or optimized for client software. But LimeWire is server software. There's a client component. There's like a GUI that you click and interact with. But what's important is the peer-to-peer network under the hood. It's that your LimeWire instance was reaching out and torrenting data from other servers. You said LimeWire went away. LimeWire went away, but torrenting didn't. People torrent all the time. You can torrent using one of our servers. You can plug the server in and you can stream data from other servers and load it onto a media server, and then go to the other side of the world and open up your media server and stream a movie from your home and watch The Lion King, which is what my daughter uses our media server for. So like, it's all alive and well. It's just not in vogue. It's not part of the, it's not like it was when we were in college and everyone was torrenting music from other servers. It sort of faded away because the big centralized entities came in and made it, less risky that you're going to download malware. They made it more legal. You're not going to get a letter from the FBI. And they made it cheap enough that we said, all right, I'll do $4 a month for unlimited music. So in other words, the market came up with a very good solution, but it is not the permanent solution. It has its own problems. It's just it was a patch. Silicon Valley figured out a patch that was accepted by most people, but it's not how it's going to end. It's going to end with torrenting. It's going to end back at LimeWire and Napster.
All right, so I got a question for each of you. Firstly, the computer that you guys have developed, can it be hooked to external monitors? Then if so, does the same screen effect carry over? Or Is it taking on the other screens, like colorization and things like that?
You got to solve the problem at the hardware level.
Okay.
So we need to come up with a daylight monitor that
Gotcha.
doesn't emit blue light, can be used in the sun, so on and so on.
Right. So if you're on YouTube on your computer, throw it onto a separate monitor, it would be just colorized.
Yeah,
like
you
normal.
technically could use a daylight monitor with a MacBook, and as long as you're not looking at your MacBook screen, you would get the physical benefits.
Okay.
Maybe the addiction and the sovereignty and all that stuff you're not solving, but one at a
Right.
time.
Yeah. Okay. And then for you, for you're referencing media server. So we have, I don't know, 300 DVDs and 7,000 photos and all that. You have the one and the pure. So I guess quickly, what are the differences between the two mainly? And then do you have expandable storage for multi-terabyte level picture fanatics and video downloaders?
Yeah, good question. So primarily what we build is StartOS operating system. That's what we spend like 90% of our time doing as a company. And StartOS is open source software under the MIT license. We have no claim to it from a proprietary standpoint. So my company spends most of its resources building stuff that does not belong to us, which is mind-blowing to our investors. But kudos to them for listening to me explain how we can still make money. So you can go to some old laptop that you have, an old MacBook, an old Mac Mini, an old desktop tower, doesn't matter, and just download ROS from the internet and flash it to that device and literally turn your old Mac into a Start9 server for free. And we don't even know that it exists. There is no phone back to our mothership. There is no account. There's nothing like that. We have no idea that you did this. We have no idea that you exist. And you got it for free. And you can throw us a donation if you want. So the answer is that you can get any size drive you want. Go buy any computer you want, as big of a drive as you want, and just flash StartOS to it, and you will be a competent server admin. What we sell is convenience. When people buy a device from us, it's not because that's how you have to engage with our technology. It's because most people don't have some old computer laying around that is high enough quality to function as a server, nor do they feel competent enough or even just have the time to go download software from the internet, verify its authenticity, flash it to a computer, and get up and running. People want convenience. They want a beautiful box that they can open and plug in and reach out to support, and it's under a warranty. If anything breaks, we replace it. And we're providing a service, not a product. Now, it comes in the form of a product, but the product is not the important part. So the server 1, which is our lower end product, is an extremely powerful chip, more powerful than probably almost anyone's computer in here, unless you're running one of the new Mac silicon devices, which are awesome. So it's super powerful, and it comes in either 16 or 32 gigs of RAM, which is plenty for most use cases, and either 2 or 4 terabyte NVMe SSDs, which are extremely fast and long lasting. So it's a great little device. If you want to use a media server, so my media server is our server 1, but with no NVMe SSD. I got it with just the RAM and the device, and then I got an 8 terabyte HDD and just plugged it in over USB 3, and I used that as the data drive for all the movies, because you don't need incredibly fast read-write speeds to run a media server. What you need is a powerful chip to do the transcoding. So that's my media server, is our server 1 with an external HDD. And it works great. Now the server Pure, the other device that we offer, its selling point is not only is it powerful, and it's not more powerful than the 1, but its selling point is that it has been rooted. So our server 1 and pretty much every computer on this planet, with almost no exceptions, like you cannot go to the store and buy a computer that does not fit the following description, is backdoored somewhere, at least in theory. At least you don't know, right? There is closed source firmware drivers and stuff even deeper than that is just a black box, right? One of the more notorious ones that people are aware of is IME, Intel Management Engine. This is a piece of firmware that is included with all Intel chips, and it reports to Intel. It's just your computer is being monitored at the lowest possible level. What it's reporting, when it's reporting, what it stores locally, and all that is completely unknown. It's all beneath your or anybody's ability to see. But there is a group of cypherpunks in the world, us included, that have dedicated time towards cracking Intel's management engine. And there is a select number of chips that we have succeeded at through mostly trial and error, but literally looking at bytecode, ones and zeros, and like deleting portions of it at random sometimes, and just seeing if it turns this nefarious thing off, if we can disable it. And so people do this, and you start to see patterns, and some people are pretty good at recognizing the patterns and disabling it, and then they publish it to the whole world, and now that chip has been cracked. And so the server Pure has completely open firmware. There is not a single closed source driver on the device, and it has Intel's management engine disabled, provably. So it is arguably the most open source and unbackdoored device you can possibly buy. And some people care, some people don't. But a lot of people who are running personal servers care, because if you're running a personal server, you're already thinking about these things. So you tend to go for open source software that has been rooted, so to speak. And yeah, that's what justifies the higher price point, is a lot of work, hours. It's not the hardware, it's the work that went into creating these open source firmware and Intel management engine disablement. But you can get it elsewhere. Like you can get a core boot firmware IME disabled device from other companies, but you're probably not going to save any money. We're pretty competitive. And they don't run StartOS, or at least they don't come pre-installed with StartOS.
Okay, I have a question for Start9. Forgive me if this got asked. I had to step away for a second. But, most people are pretty uneducated, myself included, on computer science. And then a lot of people are lazy and people want convenience. And it seems like a lot of these companies, I hadn't heard of someone doing what you're doing. It's very interesting. But it seems like a lot of companies that are able to become successful, the real true value lays in their ability to make the setup extremely easy. I think like the Starlink is very easy to set up. When you turn on an iPhone for the first time, it's very intuitive, very easy. Can you speak to that with you guys? Is it that way? Is that just totally ignorant and it can't be that way?
All right, we back? Okay. Good question, and it actually involves Anjan as well, right? So in fact, the last conversation we had was about exactly this. There's two challenges to using computers in the way that I think people should use them, which is running your own server and then using clients, various clients, laptops, cell phones, tablets, to connect to that server so that you essentially have a private cloud. There's two steps to making that happen. One is setting up the server, and the second is setting up the client in such a way that the two are synchronized. And what Google and Apple have done is a wonderful job of this, is you don't have to worry about the server at all. They just took that off the plate and they said, we'll run the server. Don't worry about it. Forget all the all the horrible things that we can do in that position, but we'll run the server. And when you turn on your iPhone, it just asks you to log into iCloud. And suddenly magic happens and everything syncs across your devices and all the rest. That's the experience that I want from his devices, is I want a daylight computer to be, when you turn it on, at least as an option, to log in to your personal cloud, not your iCloud, not your Google account, but you log into your personal cloud, which is a server in your home, and then magic. It's like all of a sudden every app you install is automatically authenticated, backed up. Like, I intend to obfuscate, again, the server. I don't want people to think about servers. Right now we have this awkward moment in history where we need everyone to understand what a server is and what role they play in the computing paradigm in order to get people running them. But then the only way that really scales is if we can mimic the current expectations of convenience of the consumer by re-obfuscating, pushing the server to the background again. But that requires client manufacturers to consider us in their design and architectural decisions, because most people just want to pick up a tablet, sign into something, and have it all work. So the server setup, how difficult is it now? I advertise our product as suitable for people who are computer literate. And what I mean by that, the sort of heuristic of are you computer literate, is do you feel comfortable going into the settings menu of your operating system and changing things around? Can you go into, the preferences app on your Mac laptop and set schedules and, like, can you change settings? Because a lot of people are completely uncomfortable doing that, right? They want to download an app and open it, log in, and use it for whatever it's for. They do not feel comfortable actually changing things on the computer itself. If you do, and you're comfortable doing that, and if you run into a roadblock, you're comfortable looking up a YouTube video or a piece of documentation or user manual and following instructions, then you can do this. You can absolutely do it. The process is about 5 minutes to get it from unboxing to log in for the first time is about 5 minutes, and then it's an infinite amount of rabbit hole options that you can learn about and explore. But the first thing I tell people to do is, well, it depends on who they are, but is install Bitcoin and click start. You're running a node. Congratulations. That's number one for people who care about Bitcoin. And number two is to download Vault Warden and click start and be your own password manager. That is, if you do nothing else with your own server, if that's all you do, you are well beyond where a lot of people in this world are today. One, if you're not using a password manager, this is off topic a little bit. If you're not using a password manager of any kind, start tomorrow. It's the most important thing you can do for cybersecurity in your entire digital life is to use a password manager. If you're not using a password manager, it means you're either using the same password for everything or some minute variation of that password. And if it ever gets out, your entire life is gone. So get a password manager because it's the only reasonable way to have long, complex, different passwords for every web resource that you access. And if you're going to use a password manager, why would you use somebody else's password manager where you're going to their house to store your passwords and ask permission for them every time that you need them? Instead, run your own password manager on your own server and access your passwords from anywhere in the world. It's like a notebook in your house that you can access digitally from the other side of the world on demand. That's how you should think about a password manager. And so that is the number one best and also very easy thing to download, install, and use.
All right. I think we'll wrap it there. Yeah. Give it up for Matt and Anjan.